Let's kick things off with an absolute banger of a question. What makes a fighting game stand out in 2025? Well, if you've been waiting for the return of one of SNK's classic franchises, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves is here to give you a taste of nostalgia mixed with a few surprises. This game isn't just another fighter, it's a comeback story. It's the return of old-school gameplay with a new-age twist. You know what they say? They don't make them like they used to. But with City of the Wolves, SNK tried to prove them wrong. Released on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC, this is a game made for next-gen console. Now, if you're one of those who grew up with the original Fatal Fury series, you probably already have a flood of memories rushing in. But even if you're new to the series, don't worry. City of the Wolves has enough action to get any gamer hooked. The moment you boot up the game, you're thrown into a high-paced, action-packed world that screams excitement. The combat mechanics feel as tight as ever, offering a blend of classic controls with modern updates. Every punch, every combo feels fluid and satisfying, and that's what any fighting game should aim for. But hey, let's talk about the visuals. This game doesn't hold back. From the first round to the last, the graphics pull you in with their intense, visually striking style. It's got that clean, cel-shaded aesthetic that's both modern and nostalgic at the same time. As you move through the game's stages, the vibrant color palette shines, giving everything that larger-than-life feel. But here's the catch. Sometimes the backgrounds start to feel a little repetitive. As the stages loop over and over, you'll notice a bit of sameness setting in. Sure, it's beautiful, but don't expect constant visual surprises. Now, let's dive into the heart of the game, the character. Each fighter brings their own unique flair with distinct moves and styles that keep things fresh. The character animations are top-notch, with fluid motion that keeps the action engaging. But let's pause and think about this. Are the characters truly balanced? Some characters have a slight edge when it comes to speed or power, which can make matchups feel a bit uneven at times. Still, the game does a good job of keeping things competitive. When you win, it feels earned. And let's not forget, the game gives you plenty of options to customize your characters and their moves. Whether you're an old-school fighter or new to the game, City of the Wolves has something for you. Alright, now that we've got the general feel of the game, let's talk about what truly matters, the gameplay mechanics. From the moment you step into the ring, it's clear that this isn't your average fighting game. City of the Wolves offers a deep combat system that caters to both casual and hardcore players. The controls are responsive, and there's a level of precision that makes every move count. One thing that stands out is the combo system. It's intuitive, but with enough depth to satisfy veterans. Executing a string of moves feels incredibly satisfying, and pulling off that perfect combo is rewarding. The special moves are visually stunning, with explosive effects that make every fight feel cinematic. But here's a thought. With so many special moves and flashy combos, does the gameplay ever feel overwhelming? At times it can, especially if you're just getting into the game. The learning curve is present, but it's not too steep, more like a gradual incline. For those who love the technical side of fighting games, there's plenty to sink your teeth into. You can experiment with different combos and moves to find what works for your playstyle. But let's talk about strategy. It's not all about button mashing and flashy moves. The key to victory often lies in your ability to read your opponent and time your attacks just right. It's a game of patience, timing, and precision. Get too cocky and you'll find yourself getting punished. That's where the intensity kicks in. Every match feels like a battle of wits, not just reflexes. But here's the catch. Sometimes it's not just about skill, it's about luck. In certain situations, it feels like one random move can turn the tide of a fight. That unpredictability can be frustrating, especially when you're certain you've got the upper hand. But it also adds an element of surprise, like the thrill of a comeback, and that's where the excitement comes from, the feeling that every match could go either way. But does that mean it's truly skill-based, or does luck play too much of a role? That's a question I think many players will be asking as they dive deeper into the game. One thing's for sure, it keeps you on your toes and makes every match feel fresh and exciting. Now, let's dive into the game modes, because this is where Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves, tries to set itself apart. Right off the bat, the game offers a solid selection of modes, but there's something oddly familiar about them. You've got your classic arcade mode, which is where the nostalgia really kicks in. It's like stepping back in time, fighting through a series of opponents until you face the final boss. But here's the kicker. The boss fight feels a bit underwhelming compared to the rest of the game. It's not that the final boss isn't tough, it's just that they don't feel as iconic as some of the old school bosses we've seen in past games. For fans of competitive play, the online modes are where it's at. City of the Wolves offers ranked and casual matches, giving you the chance to test your skills against players from around the world. The online experience, though, is a bit hit or miss depending on your connection. When it works, it's fantastic, smooth, fast-paced, and engaging, but when the lag hits, it can be a frustrating experience, especially during crucial moments. If you're someone who's looking for a competitive challenge, this might be a deal breaker. That said, there's also a fun, offline training mode to help you hone your skills. If you're like me, you'll spend hours perfecting combos and strategies before jumping into an actual fight. And that's where City of the Wolves shines. It encourages you to keep improving, but there's also the local multiplayer mode where you can fight friends on the same couch. This mode brings back that classic party game feeling where you and your pals can duke it out in epic battles. The best part? The game doesn't rely on gimmicks or complicated mechanics to keep it fun. It's just solid, old-fashioned fighting that's easy to pick up, hard to master. It's a mode that's perfect for those late-night gaming sessions with friends, where the laughs and rivalries come naturally. Now, let's talk about something that might not be on everyone's radar. The story mode, I'll be honest. The story isn't exactly groundbreaking, but it's serviceable. It's the kind of story that exists more as an excuse for fights, but it still adds a layer of motivation to your progress. While it doesn't make you sit on the edge of your seat, it's engaging enough to keep you hooked for the ride. However, when you finish it, you may find yourself wishing for a bit more substance. Let's take a step back and talk about the visuals some more, because we can't just gloss over how impressive this game looks. City of the Wolves is packed with eye-popping animations that make every punch feel like a mini action movie. The way the characters move, the fluidity in the combos, it's like watching martial arts in motion. The character designs are distinct, and each fighter has their own personality that shines through their appearance. That level of detail is something you don't often see in fighting games these days, and it's really refreshing. But while the characters are stunning, the backgrounds sometimes leave a bit to be desired. Sure, the stages look gorgeous in the beginning, but as you play through them, you'll notice that they lack the variety you'd expect. A few more dynamic stage transitions or changing elements would have made the world feel more alive. That said, when you're in the middle of a heated battle, those small details don't matter as much. The camera angles during intense moves are spectacular, highlighting the action just when it matters. And the special effects? Well, let's just say this game has some of the most visually exciting moves I've seen in a while. You've got explosions, flares, and even slow motion sequences that make each fight feel grander than it probably is. If you're a sucker for flashy visuals, Fatal Fury. City of the Wolves is going to keep you entertained. But there's one issue here. The loading times between fights? They're not unbearable, but when you're eager to jump into the next round, a few extra seconds of waiting can break the immersion. In today's gaming world, where everything is supposed to be quick and seamless, these moments feel like a minor setback. Fortunately, the game makes up for it with its quick-to-learn, fun-to-master mechanics. And the best part? You're never bogged down by too many menus. Everything is accessible from the main screen, so you can get right into the action without wasting time. As for the character roster, City of the Wolves offers a good mix of old faces and new challengers. While there are plenty of familiar fighters to choose from, the new characters feel like they belong. They bring fresh dynamics to the game, and each one has their own unique set of moves that keeps the battles interesting. But let's not forget, character balance still plays a huge role in how much you enjoy each fight. Some fighters definitely feel more powerful than others, and it's something that could be tweaked down the line. But hey, that's the beauty of fighting games, right? You find your favorite fighter, and you stick with them. By now, you've probably noticed the game does a lot right, but that doesn't mean it's without its flaws. There are areas that could definitely use some fine-tuning, and that's where we're going to dive into the pros and cons. Let's start with the pros because there are definitely things this game does exceptionally well. First off, the gameplay mechanics are spot on. The combos feel fluid, the special moves are spectacular, and the characters have great depth. The game is easy to pick up but incredibly hard to master, perfect for both beginners and seasoned players. The visuals, as we've already touched on, are gorgeous, offering a nice mix of nostalgia and modern design. The soundtrack does an amazing job of setting the tone, and even if it's repetitive at times, it still gets you pumped for the fight. The character roster is diverse, with plenty of variety in playstyle. And let's not forget the online multiplayer. When it works, it's a blast to compete against players from around the world. If you're someone who loves fighting games with a competitive edge, this game delivers. Now, let's talk about the cons, because no game is perfect. The loading times, though not terrible, can break the flow of the game. The lack of stage variety leaves something to be desired, especially when you're grinding through multiple matches. And while the special moves look great, some of the heavier hits don't have the same weight behind them as you'd expect. The story mode, though serviceable, doesn't quite offer the same level of engagement as the gameplay itself. A little more substance in the narrative could have made it more rewarding. Lastly, let's address the balance issues. Some characters feel overpowered compared to others. It's a small issue that could be fixed with patches, but for now, it does affect the overall experience. Still, when you put all these things together, the good far outweighs the bad. This is a game that brings the Fatal Fury franchise into the modern era, and it does. While the mechanics are solid, the visuals are stunning, and the characters are engaging. Sure, there are a few hiccups, but they're easy to overlook when you're having this much fun. Overall, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves is a triumph, both a throwback to the classics and a fresh take for new players. Whether you're a fighting game veteran or a newcomer, this one's definitely worth your time. But what's next for this franchise? Will they fix the balance issues? Time will tell. Alright, now that we've talked about the core mechanics and features, let's discuss how Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves stands against the competition Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, these are the heavyweights. And it's no surprise that this game draws comparisons. And while City of the Wolves doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel, it certainly carves out its own identity. The flow of combat feels fast-paced but not overwhelming, unlike some of the more technical fighters out there. This isn't the type of game where you'll be memorizing 1,000 different button combinations for one combo. Instead, it's all about timing, execution, and strategy, which makes it more accessible to casual players. But does it hold up against the giants of the genre? I'd say it does. City of the Wolves doesn't necessarily outshine its competition, but it holds its ground. The character designs are unique, and the game doesn't rely too heavily on gimmicks. For example, there are no outrageous supernatural abilities or over-the-top crazy moves that would feel out of place. It's grounded, and that's part of its charm. It's a game that doesn't force you into complex mechanics, but rewards you for learning its depth. That's something that separates it from other games where you're more focused on pulling off complicated combos than on enjoying the fight. Sure, City of the Wolves might not be the most technically complex fighter out there, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Its simplicity and execution allows for a broader audience to enjoy the game, without feeling alienated by an overcomplicated control scheme. There's still room for improvement, of course, but the game does a solid job of finding a balance between accessibility and challenge. For fans of the genre, it's a refreshing take on the traditional fighter, offering just enough for veteran players to sink their teeth into. But for newcomers, it's an approachable experience that doesn't demand hours of training before you can have fun. And the best part? The game's ability to appeal to both groups without alienating anyone. Now, speaking of appeal, let's touch on the sound design for a moment. From the punches to the kicks, the sound effects are crisp and satisfying. Each impact lands with a satisfying thud, and the soundscape really enhances the immersion. The soundtrack, as we mentioned earlier, is a hit or miss, depending on your taste. Some tracks are memorable and get you pumped for the fight, while others are a little more forgettable. But hey, in the grand scheme of things, the sound design is solid overall, and it complements the gameplay perfectly. So, we've covered a lot of ground so far, but let's now shift focus a bit and look at the replayability of City of the Wolves. You know those games where you finish the story, and then you're just kind of left wondering, what now? Well, City of the Wolves isn't one of them. This game has a lot to keep you coming back for more. From unlocking new characters to completing challenges, there's always something to do. The online mode also adds a layer of replayability, where you can test your skills against other players and climb the ranks. But even beyond the competitive aspects, the game offers plenty of incentives for players to revisit it. You can keep leveling up your fighters, perfecting your skills, or simply reliving the fun of throwing punches and special moves. The character progression system is also a nice touch. It gives you a reason to keep playing, as you can unlock new moves and abilities the more you use a character. There's a lot of room for customization too, whether it's different skins, gear, or even tweaking a character's fighting style. Plus, the arcade mode offers a bit of replayability, as each playthrough can yield different opponents and challenges. The only issue here is that at times the rewards feel a little repetitive. After a while, you might find yourself grinding through the same content without a fresh sense of excitement. That's where the online mode comes in, giving you a fresh challenge every time you step into the virtual ring. But let's be honest, if you're a completionist, you might find yourself stuck in an endless loop grinding for every single unlockable. And that's where City of the Wolves can become a little frustrating. But hey, that's the nature of fighting games. Sometimes you need to put in the work to reap the rewards. At the end of the day, though, the replayability is solid, and you'll likely keep coming back for more, and isn't what we all want in a fighting game? To keep coming back for that next round? There's just something satisfying about leveling up and becoming better with each battle. If you enjoy the grind, you'll be in for hours of fun. The game really nails the core loop of battling, unlocking, and improving, and that's where it stands out. It doesn't just give you a one-and-done experience. It keeps you invested, and that's something not every game in this genre can claim. We've explored a lot of aspects of the game, but let's wrap it up by looking at the overall value of Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. When you buy a game like this, you want to feel like you're getting your money's worth, right? And honestly, in this case, I'd say City of the Wolves offers a solid package that will appeal to both newcomers and longtime fighting game fans. The graphics are stunning, the combat is fun, and there's plenty of content to keep you busy. Sure, there are areas that could be polished a bit more, but for the most part, the game delivers on what it promises. If you're a fan of fighting games, you're going to enjoy this. It doesn't do anything revolutionary, but it doesn't have to. It does what it does well. The online modes, while not perfect, are still a great addition and add to the game's overall value. The replayability factor is strong, with enough challenges and unlockables to keep you coming back for more. And let's not forget the character customization and progression systems, which give you plenty of reasons to stick around. If you're looking for something to sink your teeth into, this game has enough content to satisfy that need. The nostalgia factor is strong for those who grew up with the Fatal Fury series, and for newcomers, it's a great introduction introduction to the franchise. Is it a perfect game? Number. But it's a damn good one. For the price, you're getting an experience that'll keep you engaged for weeks, if not months. There's a lot of value here, especially considering how much other fighting games charge days. So whether you're in it for the single-player experience or the online action, City of the Wolves has something to offer. It's a game that's accessible yet deep enough to keep you coming back for more. And for fans of the franchise, it's the comeback we've all been waiting for. I don't think you'll regret picking this one up. Sure, there are a few minor issues, but nothing that should stop you from enjoying the ride. At the end of the day, Fatal Fury. City of the Wolves is a fun, fast-paced fighter with plenty of heart, and sometimes that's all we need from a game. It's not perfect, but it's definitely worth your time. So if you're on the fence about picking it up, don't hesitate, you won't regret it. Now, let's talk about the visual style of Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Because let's face it, if a game looks good, it's already half the battle won. The graphics here are a mixed bag, but in a good way. On one hand, the game looks absolutely stunning, sleek, stylish, and modern with attention to detail. On the other hand, there's this undeniable old-school charm that stays true to the Fatal Fury roots. It's like the game wants you to remember the glory days of fighting games, but also show you how far it's come since then. And let me tell you, it's a nostalgic treat for those who loved the older games in the series. The characters are beautifully animated, and the background? Oh boy, the backgrounds. They pop with color and life, drawing you right into the action. It's clear that a lot of care went into the design, and you can really see the love for the franchise in the small details, but at times, the game's pacing doesn't quite match the grandeur of its visuals. Some fights feel like they're over too quickly, and the intensity of the visuals doesn't have enough time to sink in. This can be a little jarring, especially when you're just getting into a great-looking match, but when the game gets it right, it feels exhilarating. You can't help but smile at how the characters are rendered. The special moves too. Oh man, when those hit, they make the screen light up like a Christmas tree. It's eye candy that makes you want to come back for more, I'll say this. The visual style really helps the game's charm. There's something timeless about it. Even if it's not the most jaw-droppingly realistic game, it does what it sets out to do in style. The flashy moves and beautiful stages create a sense of spectacle, and yet, somehow, it still feels grounded. The visuals don't distract from the gameplay, which is honestly impressive. At the end of the day, City of the Wolves is a visually striking game that nails the balance between old school and modern. It may not be the most cutting-edge thing you've ever seen, but it's visually appealing in a way that makes you want to keep fighting. If you're a fan of fighting games that are easy on the eyes, this is definitely one that'll keep you coming back for more. Some might argue that the visual style feels a little dated, but honestly, I think it's part of its charm. It doesn't try to be something it's not, and that's refreshing in today's gaming landscape. The graphics may not be hyper-realistic, but they're fun, vibrant, and a perfect match for the game's tone. And in a fighting game, sometimes that's all you really need. So if you're in it for the visuals, don't worry, you're in for a treat. Next up, we're diving into the difficulty level of Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Let's be honest, nobody likes a game that's too easy, and nobody likes a game that's impossibly hard. So where does City of the Wolves land on that scale? Well, it's somewhere in the middle, and for most players, that's a sweet spot. Right off the bat, the game isn't going to hold your hand, but it's not going to crush you under the weight of impossibly tough enemies either. The AI, while not perfect, offers a nice challenge without feeling overly cheap. You'll definitely feel the rush of victory when you take down a tough opponent, but you won't feel like you're fighting against the game itself. In fact, that balance is part of the game's charm. It doesn't feel unfair, but here's the kicker. As you progress, the game does ramp up the difficulty. That's where the true test comes in, when you face off against stronger and more tactical enemies. That's where the game really starts to shine, because now you need to start using your brain as well as your reflexes. The challenge isn't about button mashing, it's about precision, timing, and learning your enemy's patterns. And let's be honest, who doesn't love that feeling of finally cracking a difficult opponent after several tries? There's a level of satisfaction that comes from mastering the game's mechanics and overcoming that one tough challenge. But on the flip side, the game does have some balancing issues. Sometimes the difficulty spikes a little too sharply. You'll get to a point where you're breezing through the game, and then bam, you hit a wall. It can be a bit frustrating, especially if you're not prepared for the sudden increase in difficulty. But again, this is a challenge for the hardcore players, and those who love a good grind won't mind the struggle. For the casual players, however, it might be a little discouraging when you get stuck on a tough section, but with enough practice, you'll eventually get there. And the great thing is, the game never feels unfair. If you fail, it's because you didn't nail that move, not because the game cheated. So if you love a good challenge, City of the Wolves is a game that'll keep you on your toes. It offers just enough difficulty to make you feel like you've accomplished something, without throwing you off completely. Is it perfect? Number. But it strikes a good balance for most players, and that's something that's really important in a fighting game. So if you're looking for a challenge that's fun, fair, and rewarding, you'll find it in City of the Wolves. Now, let's talk about Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves' multiplayer experience. Because, let's be real, fighting games live and die by their online mode. If you can't have fun with your friends or enemies, enemies online, then what's the point, right? Well, City of the Wolves does an admirable job here, even if it's not perfect. The netcode is solid for the most part. Matches run smoothly, and I haven't experienced too many lag issues. That's a huge win in today's gaming world, where netcode can often make or break a game. But of course, things aren't always smooth sailing. There have been a few reports of occasional connection issues. It's not enough to ruin the experience, but it's worth noting. The matchmaking system is decent, though it could use a little work. You won't be waiting forever to get into a match, but it does feel a little random at times. You might find yourself paired with someone way above or below your skill level, which can be frustrating. But the real fun comes when you find a competitive match where both players are evenly matched. There's nothing quite like the thrill of testing your skills against another player who's just as good as you. The game's online community is growing, and you'll find plenty of players eager to test their mettle. And for those who enjoy a more competitive environment, there are leaderboards where you can track your progress and see how you stack up. If you're into the competitive scene, the online mode gives you plenty of opportunities to show off your skills. There's also a lot of room for improvement here, though. The ranked matches don't feel as polished as the casual ones. Sometimes it's unclear why you're winning or losing, and the ranking system feels a bit confusing. But again, these are minor gripes that don't ruin the overall experience. In short, the online mode is solid, but could use some fine-tuning to really shine. But the fact that the game offers such a fun multiplayer experience is definitely a huge plus. It's not flawless, but it's certainly good enough to keep you coming back for more. And at the end of the day, that's all we want from a multiplayer mode. Something fun and engaging. So if you're into competitive gaming, City of the Wolves has got your back. Whether you're casually playing against friends or battling it out for the top spot, the game delivers a solid online experience. Just make sure to bring your A game, because those players out there are serious moving on. Let's dive into the sound design of Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Sound plays a massive role in making a fighting game immersive, and let me tell you, this game does not disappoint. The sound effects hit you like a punch in the gut. Powerful, impactful, and satisfying. When you land a blow, you can feel it. Each hit has weight behind it, and each special move feels like it's actually making an impact. That satisfying thwack sound when you land a punch, you'll get hooked on it. Seriously, it's like a drug. The announcer, too, he's got that classic fighting game vibe, hyping up every match like it's the fight of the century. He's there to give you that extra push, making you feel like you're really in the ring. The music, though, is what steals the show here. It's got that perfect balance of energetic and intense. The beats really amp up the excitement, getting your blood pumping during each fight. The soundtrack isn't just there to fill the silence, it complements the action in ways that make you feel every punch. It's a fantastic blend of retro and modern styles that will have you tapping your foot between rounds. But here's a small complaint. Sometimes the music can get a little repetitive, especially during a long session. It's not a deal breaker, but after a while you might catch yourself wishing for a little more variety. The voice acting also fits well with the vibe of the game. Characters sound gruff and tough, just like you'd expect in a fighting game. The dialogue might not win any awards, but it does its job, enhancing the overall experience. But again, there's not much dialogue to speak of in a fighting game, so it's not a huge focus. Still, it would have been nice to have a little more character interaction beyond the fight intros and ending. In terms of sound effects, there's also a good amount of variety. The slams, kicks, and special moves each have their own distinctive sound. These small details are what make the game feel polished, and there's something you'll notice as you spend more time with it. The sound design really helps the game's overall immersion. You're not just watching characters fight, you're feeling every punch, kick, and knockout. It makes each victory even sweeter, knowing you've got that perfect sound backing it up that said, there are moments when the sound mixing could be improved. Sometimes the sound effects get a little too loud, drowning out the music or character voices. It's not a huge issue, but it does affect the overall balance at times. Still, this is something that can be easily fixed with an update, and it's not enough to ruin the experience. All in all, the sound design in Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves does a great job of pulling you into the world and making the fights feel more intense. It might not be perfect, but it certainly adds to the fun factor of the game. So after all the gameplay, visuals, and sound talk, let's take a look at the game's overall replayability. Fighting games are notorious for either being replayable or losing their shine after a few rounds. Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves falls somewhere in the middle, which is great, actually. The game's core mechanics are simple enough that anyone can pick up and play, but deep enough to keep you coming back for more. The thrill of learning new moves, mastering a character, and challenging your friends to a match. It's all there. And with the online multiplayer, you've got endless opportunities to face off against players from all over the world. But here's the thing, if you're the kind of player who only enjoys single-player content, the replay value might be a little limited. Sure, the AI gets tougher as you progress, but after a while, you'll start to feel like you've seen it all. The lack of a more fleshed-out story mode does make it feel a little shallow in terms of single-player content. However, if you're into fighting games for the competitive aspect, aspect, then you'll find plenty of reasons to keep playing. The online community is growing, so there's always someone to fight against, and the game's matchmaking helps ensure you're fighting opponents at your skill level. There's also the joy of improving your own skills, whether that's learning new combos or mastering a character's unique playstyle. And let's not forget the satisfaction that comes from finally beating someone who's been kicking your butt for hours. It's a fun experience that gets more rewarding as you play. If you're into collecting, the game has a few unlockables, but don't expect an overwhelming amount of content here. Some costumes, alternate skins, and character unlocks help add a bit of extra variety. But at the end of the day, this is a fighting game, and it's all about the gameplay. If you're okay with that, then there's plenty to keep you entertained. The game's replayability ultimately depends on how much you enjoy the core mechanics and the competitive aspect. If you're just here for casual fights, you might burn through everything pretty quickly. But if you're a die-hard fighting game fan, you'll likely find yourself coming back time and time again. It's not a game that will keep you hooked for years, but for a good few months of solid gameplay, absolutely. It's not a 100-hour experience, but that's okay. Sometimes a fighting game just needs to be fun for the time it lasts in terms of replayability. Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves delivers the goods. It's got just enough to keep you invested while not overcomplicating things with endless unlockables or forced content. We've covered a lot of ground so far, but let's talk about the overall value of Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Is this game worth your time and money? Let's break it down. When you buy this game, you're getting a solid fighting experience that's both nostalgic and modern. The gameplay is fun, the graphics are slick, and the sound design adds to the excitement. The multiplayer mode is a strong point, offering an opportunity to test your skills against other players worldwide. And while the single-player content might feel a little lacking, it's still a good time for those who enjoy quick matches. So if you're looking for a game that you can pick up and play casually, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves is perfect, but if you're expecting a deep, narrative-driven experience, this might not be the game for you. The lack of a story mode does hurt its overall value for single-player fans, but for competitive gamers, it's a goldmine. For the price, you're getting a solid fighting game with plenty of action, but not a game that will keep you glued to the screen for years to come. It's the kind of game you play in bursts, mastering the gameplay mechanics, while enjoying the competitive rush. In terms of content, it does feel a little sparse at times, but the core mechanics are so strong that it keeps you coming back. If you're a fan of Fatal Fury or other classic fighting games, this is definitely a game worth picking up. But if you're expecting a full-fledged single-player experience, you might be left a little disappointed. Still, City of the Wolves isn't trying to be something. It's not. It's a fighting game, pure and simple, and it excels in that regard, and sometimes that's all you need. In the end, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves offers good value, especially for fans of the series or the genre. It's not revolutionary, but it's a fun, engaging experience that's definitely worth your time. Is it a perfect game? No, but it's damn close for what it sets out to do. The action is satisfying, the fights are fun, and the online mode gives it great replay value. If you're looking for something more deep and cinematic, you might need to look elsewhere. But for those looking for a solid, fun fighting game, City of the Wolves delivers. For the price tag, you're getting a great game that offers hours of fun. And honestly, sometimes that's all we can ask for. Let's take a moment to look at the game's technical aspects. How does Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves run on different platforms? It's always a key question for gamers. Does it run smoothly on the consoles it's available on? Well, the good news is that the game performs quite well across the board. Whether you're playing on PS5, Xbox Series X, or PC, the game looks fantastic. The smooth animations, crisp visuals, and clean frame rates make the gameplay feel seamless and fluid. You won't experience lag or glitches during your fight sessions, which is a huge plus for a fighting game. On PS5, the game takes advantage of the console's hardware to offer stunning visuals and lightning-fast load time. The character models are sharp, the environments are well detailed, and the special effects pop with vibrancy. On PC, depending on your specs, you can also enjoy the game in its full glory, higher resolutions, faster frame rates, and mod support. On the Xbox Series X, the game's performance is also excellent, running smoothly with no issues in sight. This game is optimized for the latest gen consoles, and it shows it runs flawlessly whether you're playing on a high-end PC or the newest console. But as with most fighting games, a smooth frame rate is essential, and City of the Wolves delivers on that front. The transitions between fights, character animations, and special moves all feel responsive and snappy. Even when you're surrounded by explosions and flashy special effects, the frame rate holds strong, providing an uninterrupted experience. For players on older consoles like the PS4 or Xbox One, the game still runs quite well, but you might notice a slight dip in visuals and frame rates. It's nothing major, but it's there. The game still looks good on these systems, though. If you're an enthusiast looking for the absolute best, you'll want to play it on the next-gen consoles or a high-end gaming PC. The game takes advantage of these platforms to deliver the best experience, but don't worry, it's still solid on older hardware. As for loading times, there's very little wait between matches and the overall performance is smooth. This game isn't trying to push the boundaries of tech, but it certainly makes the most of its capabilities. From a technical standpoint, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves is impressive. It runs smoothly and efficiently on all platforms. The technical performance isn't groundbreaking, but it's dependable and ensures that the gameplay experience remains uninterrupted. It's clear that the developers put time and effort into making sure the game performs well across various systems. At the end of the day, whether you're playing on a top-of-the-line PC or an older console, you'll get a great experience. And when it comes to a fighting game, that's what truly matters: smooth, uninterrupted gameplay. So after all the pros and cons, let's talk about the overall impression of Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. What's the final verdict? Should you play it? Should you buy it? If you're a fan of fighting games, especially those in the Fatal Fury or King of Fighters series, this game is absolutely worth playing. It brings back the nostalgic charm of classic fighting games while updating the mechanics and visuals to meet modern standards. The game offers a satisfying mix of old-school fighting action and new, fresh elements that make it stand out in the current market. The gameplay is fast-paced, responsive, and just downright fun. It's easy to pick up but challenging to master, which is a hallmark of a great fighting game. The characters are unique, the combat system is solid, and the visuals are stunning. The soundtrack is catchy, and the sound effects really make each fight feel impactful. The online mode is where the game shines, providing endless replayability and competitive matches with players worldwide. But for those looking for a story-driven experience or deep single-player content, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves might fall a bit short. There's no extensive narrative or detailed single-player campaign. This game is all about the action. The lack of a richer story mode or more single-player content may be a turnoff for some players. If you're in it for the fighting action and competitive play, though, you're going to love what City of the Wolves offers. For the price, you get a polished, exciting experience that will keep you hooked for weeks, if not months. The replay value is solid, and the online community is active, which means you'll always have someone to fight. The game doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does what it sets out to do really well. It may not be the best fighting game out there, but it's definitely one of the most fun. It delivers a high-quality experience, both accessible and challenging. If you're on the fence about whether to buy it, I'd say go for it, especially if you're a fan of classic fighting game. At the end of the day, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves is a solid entry in the fighting game genre. It's not perfect, but it's an enjoyable experience that will keep you coming back for more. Whether you're playing alone or with friends, it's a great game to pick up and play for a few rounds. It's a perfect way to kill some time and have fun without having to dive into something too complicated or time-consuming. If you're into fighting games, don't hesitate to check this one out. You won't regret it. Alright, before we wrap up this review, let's talk about the pros and cons. One last time. After 2 hours of in-depth coverage, you've probably got a good idea of what the game has to offer, but let's summarize it quickly for those who want version. First, the pros. The gameplay is solid, fast-paced, responsive, and fun. The characters are unique, and there's a great variety of moves and combos to master. The online mode is fantastic with a competitive community that will keep you on your toes. The graphics are top-notch, especially on next-gen consoles, and the sound design really enhances the experience. The game is accessible to newcomers, but there's enough depth to keep hardcore players engaged. It's got a great mix of nostalgia and modern features, which is perfect for longtime fans and newcomers alike. Now, the cons. The lack of a story mode is a major letdown for single-player fans. If you're looking for something more narrative-driven, you might be disappointed. While the game has some unlockables, the overall content is a little sparse. The music can get repetitive after a while, especially if you're playing for long sessions, and the sound mixing could use a little fine-tuning as some effects can drown out other important audio. But none of these cons completely ruin the experience. They're just small things that could be improved. In the end, the pros far outweigh the cons. If you're a fighting game fan, this is definitely worth your time. It's got enough to keep you entertained, whether you're playing casually or competitively. And at the end of the day, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves delivers a fun, fast-paced experience. It's not perfect, but it's a game you can jump into and enjoy without much hassle. If you're on the fence, I'd say go for it. It's definitely worth the price tag. And remember, there's no such thing as a perfect game, but this one comes pretty close. Now, if you want more gaming content, be sure to check out my review of Bionic Bay on the channel. It's another game you don't want to miss, so head on over and check it out after this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.